Hey everybody, welcome back to the Vinyl Junkie Record Shop. My name is Mike, and today I'm going to show you a different medium than vinyl. Every record shop's got a wide selection of other mediums, including CDs and cassette tapes. A lot of the older guys like me have a whole cache of cassette tapes, so I figured I'd do a newer episode. We call this the cassette cache, for lack of any other originality that I have. But anyway, I dug out some of the cassette tapes that I've had stored away, and I just grabbed 10 random ones to show you, and we'll go through them. I got the old trusty boom box sitting in the background. This was my mother's, and when she passed away, I kind of inherited that with some other of her things and kind of hold on to it for sentimental value. But it's a Sony. It still sounds really good, and I think it's the only cassette tape player that I still own. So a lot of you have cassette tapes out there. You kind of enjoy seeing the cassette tapes. So let's just dig out a few. So from the top, this one. Okay. I'm from the Indianapolis area, and this is a legendary Indianapolis performer. His name is Henry Lee Summer. This is a self-titled. This came out in 80. I'm going to play trombone here. 88, but many of the songs were written, 4 years before. So Henry Lee Summer kind of came up with a really booming Indianapolis music scene, and was kind of caught the eye of John Mellencamp, and John Mellencamp's people, I think, kind of helped Henry Lee pick up this major label record contract with, this came out on, who is this? Doesn't even say on here. Doesn't say anywhere. My gosh, it doesn't even, CBS Records. Anyway, Henry Lee Summer's a local Indianapolis legend. They've been around forever. And he had a great band, great sound, wrote some great songs. He's probably most well known for the song "I Wish I Had a Girl," but this has "Darling Danielle Don't," "Wingtip Shoes," one of my favorites. "Lovin' Man," that's a good rockin' song on here. "Still Being 17," lots of classic hits from a legendary Indianapolis artist, Henry Lee Summer. I think I took my kids to see him perform at a local shopping mall. A couple of years ago, it's been a few years back now. Anyway, I took some video of that and posted that. That's on my channel somewhere. And it actually is like, up until one of my Iron Maiden videos, it was my most viewed video. So if you've never heard of Henry Lee Summer, check him out. If you like Eddie Money, older John Mellencamp, that kind of thing, it's Midwest Heartland rock with some boogie elements. So great artist, great album, Henry Lee Summer. Check him out. All right, moving on. This is one, don't remember when I found this, but this is one I remember getting like at a Woolworth dime store. Back in the day, they had all kinds of like cassettes that you could find I didn't know who these guys were when I bought this, and then learned that it was one of the finest singers in all of metal. So this is a band called Hughes Thrall. Glenn Hughes sings on this, and Pat Thrall is the guitarist. I should know from my research what he's familiar with, or what his background is. But I do remember in listening to one of those old Metal Shop episodes. You old guys, you remember if you used to listen to the Metal Shop, that show? That was awesome. Charlie Kendall was the host of it, and great metal radio program back in the days of radio. But anyway, Gary Moore had a segment where he listed his top 5 favorite metal tracks, and on that top 5 list was the song "Muscle and Blood" by Hughes Thrall, and he praised Glenn Hughes is a great singer, and when Gary Moore says that he thinks Pat Thrall is a very fine guitarist, that's high praise coming from a guy like Gary Moore. So self-titled Hughes Thrall, released in 1982. Haven't listened to this forever. I'm going to have to put that in and listen to it later. All right, next up, This was one of my favorite cassettes back in the day. Absolutely loved this album. Listened to this a lot when I was driving. This is the second major label, or might be the second overall release from Fastway, released in 1984. This is All Fired Up. You can see that there was some glare. A lot of these cassettes, they didn't come with any kind of. That's what some of the cassettes used to come with back in the day. You traded that for the portability and convenience of having a cassette, I guess. This is one I'd really like to get on vinyl one of these days. But great track listing: All Fired Up, Misunderstood, Steal the Show, Nonstop Love. This was just a really good album from a great band. Most of you know Fastway was Fast Eddie Clark. It was supposed to have been Pete Way, but Pete Way never ended up being in the band. But the guy in the band that was always one of my favorites, and is one of my favorite drummers, is Jerry Shirley. That guy could really lay down a great beat. He was in Humble Pie before Fastway, and then in Fastway. That guy just really lays down an awesome beat. So check out anything that Jerry Shirley's ever played on. All right, moving on. Oh, this was another fine one. This is one of the, I think, prime examples. If you wanted to go to an early prototype American power metal sounding album or band, you'd have to go with this one. I believe they were from Los Angeles, is where they originated from. I could be wrong about that. But anyway, this is from 1988. This is Heretics' album, Burning Point. It was co-produced by Bill Metoyer, who did a lot of the Metal Blade stuff, and Kurt Vanderhoof of Metal Church. And no surprise that the lead vocalist of this band, this is going to be really hard to see, but there are the guys there. See if you can spot them in there. This featured on lead vocals Mike Howe, who would eventually go on to replace David Wayne in Metal Church, and then record on many subsequent Metal Church albums. Rest in peace, Mike Howe. You're dearly missed. But man, this album is great. This has just got some great American U.S. power metal sound. It's that really ideal kind of sound that fits nicely in between regular traditional heavy metal and thrash and speed metal. It nestled in there real nice. The riffs and guitar tone and sound was a lot heavier than your traditional metal bands and albums, but they just weren't as fast and furious as a lot of the thrash bands. So just a great album, Heretic with Burning Point. I'd love to get that one on, get a vinyl copy of that one someday too. All right, here, this one's from 83. This was, I think, the third album from this band, fourth album maybe, fourth one, Assault Attack. Yeah, I think maybe the fourth. Shame on me for not being more into this band, but clearly, I'm well familiar with who he is and his legacy and other involvements. But this is the Michael Schenker group with Built to Destroy. Always thought that was a pretty neat album cover. A little bit of information here. This one has Gary Barden on vocals. That's the insert. You get no lyrics or photos or anything. I think that maybe the self-titled Michael Schenker group album and Assault Attack. I just was listening to. I was in a record shop the other day and the guy was playing Assault Attack. It sounded great. But this one, honestly, I've not listened to in a long time. I'll have to put this one in there and give this a listen. Michael Schenker group. What can what else can you say? Great guitar slinger. Shame on me for not being more into those MSG albums back in the day. All right, down the list again. This one I think is in the player. I was listening to this earlier on in the day, and this was This was a hair metal band, and they didn't make it. As far as I know, this might be their only recording that came out of the big time. This is from I can't see the small print anymore. 1990. Produced by Peter Collins, who would produce some Queensryche material. I think he did. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think Peter Collins did produce at least one Queensryche album. Anyway, this is a band called Salty Dog. And the album is Every Dog Has Its Day. Oh, this is fantastic. Just really romp and stomp and swaggery kind of blues-based hair metal. You know, not as glam as like Poison and well, you know, just pick any glam band. More muscular, I think, in their delivery. Like I'd place them more along the lines of Cinderella or Guns N' Roses or Jackal. Even the lead singer kind of has that Jackal sound. But anyway, this is great. I absolutely love this album. Played this a lot. It still sounds pretty good. It doesn't, you know, you play a lot of these cassettes for a long period of time and they get squeaks in them, or they just get that sound where you've stretched them out, they're no good anymore. But it still sounds great. Another one, this is the only medium that I've ever had it on, although it is available on Apple, because I think I've got it in my library there. But Salty Dog, Every Dog Has Its Day, really, really good stuff if you like that, you know, if you're into the hair metal. Okay, more hair metal. I mean, these guys probably were a hair metal band if you want to be honest about it. This is the third album from Quiet Riot, QR3. This would be the last album to feature, well, until much later on, the last album to feature Kevin DuBrow. Not much of an insert there. But this was recorded, and that's what I say, in '86, and you can certainly tell when you listen to it that it was released at the height of that kind of '80s hair metal craze. The keyboards and more poppy element are so prevalent on this album, and you know, lead off track, Main Attraction. When you put that on and listen to that, it's almost hard to believe that this is the same band that gave you, you know, the legendary anthem Metal Health. But that being said, there are some really good tracks on this album. The Wild and the Young was more commercial sounding, but I liked it. Twilight Hotel, not bad. But the lead off track on side 2 of this is Put Up or Shut Up. That's a great song, and that would probably make my list of favorite Quiet Riot tunes. But anyway, Quiet Riot 3, not a bad album, not terrible, but certainly not their best. All right, here's a classic, an oldie but goodie. This one is from 1983. I remember getting this. This was a Christmas gift I got one year. I might have been, if it was 83, I would have been 13. I was still kind of getting into the hard rock and heavy metal, but I absolutely loved this album. This is Twisted Sister, You Can't Stop Rock and Roll. And it was that lead-off track, that anthem, that just had me going. That one and The Kids Are Back, great tune. But that, you know, The Kids Are Back and You Can't Stop Rock and Roll, songs like that, and they're just classic. Twisted Sister really was a true, I think, proto-metal band before they had the giant hair and makeup and that kind of image going for them. But legendary band. You might say that toward the end of their discography, they had a few missteps, but their first few records, and I including Stay Hungry in that list, are just absolutely killer records. But it's a good place to start. You Can't Stop Rock and Roll. They were very right. All right. Here's another good one here on Metal Blade Records from 1989. Another band that didn't really quite make it to superstardom. You have to probably put these in tier 3, if even that. This is Intruder with A Higher Form of Killing. It works better if I take that out instead of showing the case. I should have thought of that earlier. There they are. These guys that classic U.S. power metal sound. They were, or early speed metal. These guys played fast. I'd put this album into the speed metal category, but they weren't like, they didn't sound anything like Slayer, Metallica, Megadeth, the powerhouses at the time. I would say that if you were a fan of Law's Rocket and Heretic that I showed earlier, you'd be into Intruder. But this album among collectors I'd say that it merits legendary status, and one that any metalhead would pick up if they saw out in the wild. This is the only medium I have it on. And I'll be honest, this didn't get as much playtime back in the day as the more popular thrash bands at the time, but it is a great album. It's very heavy, and it's got that classic sound that I think kind of nestles somewhere in between traditional heavy metal and real, true thrash metal. But yeah, great album. Check them out, Intruder. And then the last one I got here, I want to show this one because I showed one of their vinyls in the last video of my used stuff. This is the second album that was released from this band. This one was from 1983, I believe. And this is Vandenberg's second album, Heading for a Storm. Another classic cover. I really like that album cover too, with the shark kind of floating out over the highway. Again, not much in the form of that's what you call inlays, cassette inlay. I don't know. Not much. There's the actual, the cassette itself. This was on Atco Atlantic. Good album. Vandenberg's first album is probably the best of that trio of records. This one started to get a little more poppy, I guess, because I get 83. Probably 83 was, I'd say 84, 85 was probably the beginning of the hair metal craze. So, but this album was a little less. I don't know. It just did. I don't recall it being as hard edged as some of the other stuff that was coming out in the same time frame. Although some of the songs, really are great. Friday Night lead off track is a great tune. Welcome to the Club. Heading for a Storm was title track was good. Honestly, again, another one that I didn't spend as much time with that I should have. But Vandenberg is a very accomplished guitar player, and those three albums, the self-titled, this one Heading for a Storm, and then Alibi, were three very, very decent, early 80s hard rock albums. So that's 10. I've got a whole bunch more that I'd like to show in other videos. I hope you've had a good time seeing some of these. I really dig getting into the old box I found and digging out some of these cassette tapes that I've not seen forever. A lot of these I've either had on vinyl or have gotten on vinyl, or most likely I've had them on CD. But most of a majority of the cassette tapes that I've kept over the years were ones that I only had on cassette. I didn't have any other version of them. I very stupidly got rid of a bunch of my original cassettes that I had on either vinyl or CD. So, but that's 10. I got plenty more. I'll show you later. If you enjoyed this, hit the like, hit subscribe, and I appreciate you stopping by, and I'll have more for you when I see you next time.